Hi, my name is James Wisenhunt and I'm a Regional Site Coordinator at Reading Partners. Welcome to the first tutor training video for the 2018-2019 school year. Today, we're going to be talking about building relationships with the students we'll serve this year. To open, I want you to think about a tutor or teacher who is impactful to you and how they assisted your learning. Some of our team members are going to share some experiences they've had with their instructors.
Supportive.
Knowledgeable.
Enthusiastic.
Passionate.
Determined.
Nice.
Notice how many of the words listed above describe attitudes rather than skill sets. Though skills are important, we want to acknowledge how crucial relationships and attitudes are for student growth. We'll start there today and then get into some tips for effective tutoring.
Let's take a look at a few best practices when building a positive relationship with your student.
One way to build a strong relationship is to practice empathy during your session and to understand where your student is coming from. While we all strive to be culturally competent adults, it is still important to explore the idea of empathy when working with our students. Many of our students are growing up in environments that might be very different from how we spent our elementary school years. They often live in underserved communities or in a temporary setting and might be dealing with personal and academic challenges. They may or may not have mastered the English language yet. What we know for sure is that they are struggling with reading, which means that reading in class is likely a frustrating experience for them. We are here to support them with their reading skills and help them build up their confidence. If a student is demonstrating particularly low energy or expresses frustration that the work is hard, it's helpful to put yourself in their shoes and address their needs in a way that is developmentally appropriate and also sensitive to their perspective.
As a reading partner tutor, you have a wonderful opportunity to help a child make tremendous gains in literacy and help them grow in their self-confidence. To do this well, you must hold yourself and your student to high expectations. As you get to know your student and consider their history, their background, and their potential, you'll be able to create high yet realistic expectations. Your site coordinator will be able to help you do this. If they arise, acknowledge a student's concern and then redirect them back to the lesson. I'm sure you've noticed that sometimes students are distracted during their session by other things outside of the reading center. Obviously, if a student shares something of serious concern with you, please communicate your concerns with the site coordinator. But most of the time, when a student starts talking or complaining about something off topic, the best thing to do is to redirect them back to the curriculum. It is an expectation that your student focuses to the best of their ability. One of our site coordinators, Mary Kay, is going to be modeling this.
All right, Rylan, so today for our word net, we're going to go over the word independent. Do you remember what independent means?
My dog ran away last night.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And I know what it's like to lose something. And we can talk about that when we go back to your class, okay? But right now, can you show me or tell me what independent means?
My dog ran away last night.
Yeah, oh, I know. That's so sad. I guess he was feeling a little independent? Like maybe he didn't need any help? Is that what independent means?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
This example had a very clear solution and the student got back to work quickly. But it's a great example of how we can always redirect the student back to the work. Often, students want to know that they're in a safe place to express themselves. By acknowledging your own thoughts and emotions, you're building trust between you and your student.
Another way to build a strong relationship with your student is by making connections, both personally between you and your student and between the student and the text that you're reading. Let's talk about personal connections first. While it's not a best practice to spend the entire time talking to your student about what they did over the weekend, it is useful to spend time connecting with your student on a personal level. Imagine being in their shoes. It might be intimidating for them to work with an adult, especially for the first time, and getting to know each other can help ease their anxiety. One way to do this is by spending the time during your walk to and from class to get to know each other. If your school requires your site coordinator to pick up your student, you can spend a little bit of time talking with them when you see them in the reading center. As you may know, students love it when adults remember things about them from previous conversations. Tutors could continue conversations that started during the Lesson 0 Getting to Know You activity about your students' interests, families, and so on. Now let's talk about making connections using texts in our lessons. Making connections from your personal life to a book is a core comprehension strategy and a great way to keep students engaged. We know that many students lack background knowledge in certain areas. Before you read a story about a swamp or planting seeds, find out how much background knowledge they have about the topic. For example, what kinds of animals live in a swamp? Have you seen one in the movies before? If a student can't make a connection to a key part of the story, help them to do so using pictures from the book if they're available. For example, alligators live in swamps. Have you seen one of those before? We want books to be relevant to students' lives, so look for ways to connect students' experiences to the books they read. You can also build students' background knowledge and cultivate your personal relationship with the student by sharing your own personal connection to the topic in the book. For example, if the book is about animals on a safari, you can share an experience you've had with some of these animals in a zoo.
At Reading Partners, we strive to create a positive environment to maximize our students' learning. Most of our students are struggling with reading. The purpose of Reading Partners is to place them in the curriculum at an appropriately challenging level where they can succeed. We want them to feel successful, and this means giving them lots of specific positive feedback. For example, if the student is taking time to read with expression, say, "I really like how you changed your voice to sound excited during that part of the story." Great expression. This way, you are reinforcing behaviors you want to see and recognizing the student's effort.
There will also be times when you need to give your student feedback in a way that is constructive to their growth. You can still stay positive when giving feedback, and one way to do this is to avoid using the word no. For example, when your student sounds out a word incorrectly, instead of saying no or that's wrong, try saying good try or let's try again. Then maybe help them with the first sound and encourage them to sound out the word. It's helpful to identify something they did correctly and then offer some constructive criticism or feedback from there. For example, if the student reads the word pets as pest, you can say, "You got all the sounds in that word right, but I want you to look carefully at the letters and try the word again." So in this book, it tells you what kids do when they lose their teeth in places all over the world. Okay, so we're going to read a little bit about this, and I'm going to ask you about the setting. And remember that the setting is where the story or events take place, okay? All right, so here we go. And now we're in Central America. In Guatemala, I put my tooth under my pillow and wait for El Raton to leave me some money. So where's the setting in this one?
That way he can put his tooth in the pillow.
Yes, exactly. He puts his tooth in the pillow, but remember the setting is where it takes place. So I'm going to read this again, okay? In Guatemala, I put my tooth under my pillow and wait for El Raton to leave me some money. So where is this little boy?
In his bed.
He is in his bed, and it shows that in the picture right there. And he also lives, do you remember the name of the country where he lives?
Guatemala.
Guatemala. He's in Guatemala in his bed. Very good.
If you're able to build relationships with your student by showing empathy, making connections, being positive, and giving constructive feedback, you'll be on the right track. While following the curriculum is very important, we also want to make sure that we build strong relationships with our students. If you have any questions, your site coordinator or anybody wearing a Reading Partners badge will be happy to help.